I'll never forget that night. The smell of cheap whiskey in the car, the sound of rain against the windshield, and the sight of my coworker slumped in the passenger seat, murmuring apologies he'd never remember. But what I remember most vividly isn't him. It's the way his wife looked at me when she opened the door, eyes full of exhaustion and something else, something I didn't understand until later. That night, I thought I was just doing a favor. I didn't know it would change how I saw kindness or love forever. If you believe that one small act of kindness can change a life, please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Because stories like this one remind us that compassion always finds its way home. It was a Thursday evening, long, grey, and heavy with the kind of fatigue that seeps into your bones after a long work week. My name's Ryan Calder, 30, a junior architect at a firm that demanded more caffeine than creativity most days. We were celebrating the completion of a project, a fancy residential build that had drained us for 6 straight months. The team gathered at a rooftop restaurant downtown, laughter spilling from every table, music low and golden against the city lights. And that's where Ethan Vale, my senior colleague, started to unravel. He was charming, brilliant even, but everyone knew he carried the kind of loneliness that alcohol feeds on. He laughed louder than everyone else, drank faster, and kept insisting that life was too short to be careful. By the time dessert arrived, he couldn't even stand properly. Most of our co-workers laughed it off, snapped photos, clinked glasses, moved on. But something in me couldn't. Maybe it was because I'd seen my own father like that once. Drunk, broken, mumbling apologies he couldn't fulfill. Maybe it was because Ethan had always looked out for me at work, covering my mistakes during presentations, vouching for my ideas. So when everyone left, I stayed behind, watching him struggle with his jacket, his eyes glassy and distant. "Come on, man," I muttered quietly, grabbing his car keys before he could even think of driving. "I'll get you home." He barely protested. The rain had started by then, gentle but steady, blurring the streetlights into halos. I half-guided, half-carried him to my car, buckled him in, and started the slow drive across town. Ethan mumbled stories about his wife, how she used to wait up for him, how he didn't deserve her patience. I just listened, the wipers keeping rhythm with the rain. When we reached his neighborhood, a quiet stretch of tree-lined streets, I realized how far gone he really was. His words had turned into incoherent whispers. I parked outside a small cream-colored house with a porch light glowing faintly, and for a moment I wondered if anyone would even open the door. But when I rang the bell, it opened almost immediately. Clara Vale stood there, mid-30s, wearing a soft grey sweater and jeans, her hair tied up carelessly, eyes tired yet kind. She froze when she saw Ethan slumped over my shoulder. For a second, embarrassment and pain flickered across her face, then she stepped forward, her voice low and steady. "Thank you for bringing him home." Together, we managed to get him inside. The house was warm but quiet, like laughter hadn't visited in a while. She led me to the couch, where we laid him down. Ethan muttered something, reaching for her hand, but she gently tucked a blanket around him and sighed. I turned to leave, not wanting to intrude, but she stopped me with a soft wait. "Can I at least get you some coffee? You're soaked." I hesitated but nodded. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was the look in her eyes, tired but grateful. We sat in the small kitchen, the only light coming from above the stove. She poured steaming coffee into 2 mismatched mugs, and for a long time we just listened to the rain tapping the window. Then she spoke. "You're the first person who's ever brought him home." "Like that," she said quietly. "Usually it's a cab. Or sometimes he just sleeps in his car until morning." I didn't know what to say. "He's a good man," I offered, though it sounded weak even to my ears. She smiled sadly. "He is just lost somewhere between the man he wants to be and the one life turned him into." Her words hit me hard. Maybe because I knew that feeling too well, the weight of wanting to be better, but not knowing how. I told her how Ethan had helped me when I was struggling at work, how he'd defended me when others doubted my designs. She listened, her fingers wrapped around her mug like it was the only warmth left in her world. "You have no idea how much that means to hear," she said softly. "Sometimes I think he's forgotten who he really is." I looked at her, at the quiet strength in her voice, and something inside me stirred. Compassion, yes, but also a strange ache. Not attraction, not then, but a deep, aching empathy. When I finally stood to leave, she followed me to the door. Her hand brushed mine as she thanked me again, and there was something unspoken in that touch. Gratitude, maybe hope, or the fragile bond between two people trying to save the same man in different ways. Over the next few weeks, things at work returned to normal, or at least they seemed to. Ethan laughed off that night, apologizing for being a bit too enthusiastic, but I could see the wear in his eyes, the quiet cracks spreading wider. Then, one evening, he didn't show up to the office. The next day either. Concern pushed me to text Clara. She replied almost immediately, "He's been trying to stop drinking. It's hard, but he's trying. Thank you for checking." Something about her message made me drive to their house again after work, this time with groceries and a few takeout containers. She opened the door, surprised but smiling faintly. Inside, Ethan was asleep on the couch again, but this time not drunk. His skin looked pale, his breathing shallow but peaceful. "He's been fighting it," she said quietly. "The withdrawal's brutal. He blames himself for everything." I set the food down, unsure of what to do. Then for hours I stayed, helping her clean the dishes, keeping her company while she talked. She told me about how they met, back when he was ambitious and gentle, before the stress, before the projects and deadlines turned him into someone else. I listened, quietly, realizing that behind every broken man, there's usually someone still holding on to hope. Days turned into weeks, and soon I found myself stopping by more often. Sometimes to check on Ethan, sometimes to drop off soup or coffee, sometimes just to sit with Clara and talk about life. It wasn't love between us, not the way people imagine it. It was understanding, the kind that comes from shared silence, from two souls holding the edges of someone else's pain. Then one afternoon, while Ethan was still in recovery, something happened that I'll never forget. I was about to leave after dropping off some medication when Clara stopped me at the door. Her eyes shimmered with tears as she said, "You've done more for us than anyone else ever has. I don't know how to thank you." Before I could respond, she stepped forward and hugged me. It wasn't romantic. It was desperate, grateful, raw. She trembled in my arms, whispering, "You reminded me that kindness still exists, that people still care." I stood there, holding her for a moment that felt suspended in time, rain pattering against the windows again, faint light spilling through the curtains. When she finally pulled away, she wiped her tears and smiled softly. "You helped me remember who he was, and who I was too." That night, driving home, I realized that what she gave me wasn't just thanks. It was faith, a quiet, humbling reminder that kindness isn't always about grand gestures. Sometimes it's just showing up when the world looks away. Months later, Ethan returned to work, sober and determined. He looked healthier, his eyes clearer. During lunch one day, he pulled me aside. "I don't remember much from that night," he said, "but Clara told me everything you did. I owe you more than you'll ever know." I smiled and shrugged it off, but deep down I knew it wasn't about owing. It was about redemption, the kind that ripples from one act of care to another. Life went on, but something inside me changed. I started volunteering at a recovery center on weekends, meeting people who were fighting the same battles Ethan once had. Every story reminded me of that night, that rain, that quiet kitchen where a tired wife poured coffee for a stranger who didn't turn away. And sometimes when the rain falls just right, I still think of Clara's voice, the calm strength in it, the gratitude that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. She didn't thank me with words or gifts. She thanked me by reminding me that kindness, no matter how small, can reach places love and logic sometimes can't. So, if this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Touch of Kindness. Your support helps more people believe that compassion still matters in this world. And before you go, comment below with a simple line: kindness always finds its way home. Because sometimes it really does.